Welcome to Stories, the weekend dare that made me a girl. Finn stared at his reflection, hardly recognizing himself. Over the past few weeks, Maya and Taylor had worked their magic, turning him into someone he never imagined he could be, a girl. At first, it had been an innocent game, a way to pass the time and indulge a curiosity he had kept hidden for years. But as the hours turned into days and days into weeks, something deep inside him began to shift. The first time Maya and Taylor had coaxed him into wearing a dress, it felt surreal, like he was an actor playing a role in someone else's life. It was nothing more than a weekend dare, an experiment, they had said. But after their first trip to the mall, where they had passed him off as Ella, giggling at how seamlessly he fit into the role, everything changed. What had once felt like make-believe now seemed to awaken something inside him, something he had never been able to fully understand or express. It was as if the walls he had built up around himself, walls of masculinity, of conformity, of expectation, were crumbling away, brick by brick. Maya and Taylor had become unstoppable, treating him as one of their own, as though Ella had always been there, waiting to come to life. They insisted on teaching him the finer details of what it meant to be a girl, how to move, how to style his hair, how to do his makeup just right. They'd spend hours in front of the mirror, experimenting with looks, practicing walking in heels, and going through endless outfits. Finn had expected to feel awkward, maybe even embarrassed, but to his surprise, he found himself falling into the rhythm of it all with ease. He quickly realized he wasn't doing this just to entertain them anymore. It was becoming something else, something he was doing for himself. By Sunday morning of that first weekend, Finn had fully embraced the persona they had crafted for him. He wore a soft, flowing summer dress with a pair of strappy sandals that accentuated his legs. His hair, which Maya had painstakingly curled, bounced with every step he took, and his face, carefully made up, showed no trace of the boy he used to be. When he looked in the mirror, the face of Ella looked back at him, and for the first time in his life, he felt at ease in his own skin. But as time passed, something deeper began to shift inside him. A question lingered in the back of his mind, one he couldn't ignore anymore. Who am I really? This wasn't just about wearing his sister's clothes in secret anymore. This wasn't just a game. This was something more. Something he needed to explore. A feeling of calm and belonging washed over him each time he transformed into Ella, and the boundaries between Finn and Ella were beginning to blur. He found himself craving more time as her, relishing the confidence that came with each transformation. As they sat in his living room that Sunday afternoon, sipping iced coffees and chatting like old friends, Maya leaned over and said something that made Finn's heart skip a beat. "You know, if you wanted to do this more permanently, there are ways to make it happen," Maya said, her eyes gleaming. "What do you mean?" Finn asked, confused but intrigued. Maya exchanged a glance with Taylor, who smiled and nodded. "We mean if you really want to be Ella, there are hormones that can help with that. You could transform, not just for the weekend, but for good." Finn's stomach flipped. Hormones. He had heard about them in passing, maybe in health class, but he had never once considered it for himself. The idea was both terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Could he really do that? Could he really change himself completely? Before he could respond, Taylor pulled out her phone and began typing. "There's this site where you can get hormone tablets. A lot of people start there if they're curious. You don't have to make any decisions now, but if you're thinking about it, we could help." Finn blinked, his thoughts racing as he tried to comprehend what they were saying. It was one thing to play pretend for a weekend, but this was something else entirely. This was real. He looked at Maya and Taylor, both of them watching him with supportive smiles, as if they already knew what he was thinking. And maybe they did. After all, they had been the ones to gently nudge him into this world in the first place. His voice was barely above a whisper. "What would happen if I took them, I mean?" Maya leaned closer. "Over time, your body would change. Your skin would get softer, Your hips might get a little wider, and well, your breasts would start to grow. You'd look more like a girl, feel more like one too. Finn's heart pounded at the thought. It was crazy, completely insane, but that didn't stop the surge of excitement that bubbled up inside him. The idea of becoming Ella for real, of waking up every morning and seeing that version of himself in the mirror. It was intoxicating. I don't know, Finn stammered, his voice shaky. It sounds kind of permanent. Taylor smiled gently, her eyes warm and understanding. It doesn't have to be. You could just try it for a while, see how you feel. You don't have to make any big decisions yet. But if this weekend has shown you something about yourself, maybe it's worth exploring. Finn swallowed hard, his mind spinning. The temptation was overwhelming. He had already taken a step into this world, and now the door to something even bigger, something life-changing, was wide open. Part of him wanted to slam it shut and forget all about it. But another part, a stronger part, wanted to walk through that door and never look back. Later that night, Finn found himself alone in his room, staring at the little bottle of hormone tablets Maya had ordered for him. They had arrived shockingly fast, almost as if the universe was urging him to take the next step. The bottle sat on his desk, taunting him. His heart raced as he picked it up, turning it over in his hands. The label was plain, unassuming, but the promise it held was anything but. He knew that taking these pills would change everything. His body, his life, the way people saw him, none of it would ever be the same. But what scared him most was the thought that maybe, deep down, this was what he had always wanted. With trembling hands, Finn unscrewed the cap and took out a single tablet. He held it between his fingers for a long time, staring at it like it held the answers to all of his questions. And maybe it did. With a deep breath, he swallowed the pill, feeling it slide down his throat. The next few days were strange. Finn didn't feel any immediate changes, but he couldn't stop thinking about what might happen. Every time he caught a glimpse of himself in the mirror, he wondered if he would wake up the next morning and see something different. Would his skin start to feel softer? Would his chest ache as the hormones did their work? A week passed, then two. His family had no idea what he was going through. He kept the pills hidden, taking them in secret, waiting for the changes to come. And slowly, they did. At first, the changes were subtle, just a slight softening of his skin, a little tenderness in his chest. But as the days turned into weeks, the changes became more noticeable. His hips seemed to curve more, his face looked softer, more feminine, and his chest. Finn couldn't believe it when he saw the small but undeniable swell of breasts starting to form. It was happening. He was transforming. The excitement was almost too much to handle. Every morning he would check the mirror, running his hands over his body, feeling the new curves that hadn't been there before. It was thrilling and terrifying all at once, and while his family remained blissfully unaware, Maya and Taylor were there every step of the way, encouraging him, helping him, making sure he didn't lose his nerve. By the time 2 months had passed, Finn could no longer deny what was happening. He wasn't just pretending to be Ella anymore. He was Ella in every way that mattered. His body had transformed, his mind had shifted, and the boy he had once been seemed like a distant memory. One night, as he stood in front of the mirror, looking at the girl he had become, Finn felt a strange sense of peace wash over him. He had taken a leap into the unknown, and now he was living the life he had never dared to dream of. The thrill of the transformation, the rush of seeing his body change, it had all been worth it. But there was one final step. Finn stared at the reflection, at his new curves, his softer skin, and knew that there was no going back. He didn't want to. The weekend that had started as a harmless experiment had changed him forever. With each passing day, Finn, now fully embracing Ella, continued his transformation, both physically and emotionally. The lines between the two identities blurred more and more until there was no longer a distinction in his mind. Ella was no longer just a persona, she was who he was meant to be. The hormone tablets became a part of his daily routine, a symbol of the path he had chosen. And with Maya and Taylor by his side, he navigated this new chapter of his life with growing confidence. Every new curve, every subtle change in his body filled him with excitement and a sense of liberation. But as he embraced this new version of himself, Finn, no Ella, realized that the most profound transformation had occurred inside. He had discovered a new sense of freedom, a new sense of self that he had never known existed. The journey had only just begun. Thank you for joining us on another captivating journey through Zoe's stories. Remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a tale. Until next time, keep exploring, keep imagining, and keep believing in the magic of storytelling. See you in the next chapter.